I got better at asking questions and I felt allowed to practice my curiosity. A big question for me was, why is it that my parents and a lot of Latinos in the community work so hard but struggle to achieve economic stability or upward mobility? Recently, because I had to look into this, recently I learned that the Latinx community, we do struggle. We struggle with economic inequality and lack of representation of careers that are in demand. On average, Latin Americans in the US make about 73 cents to every dollar that a white non-Hispanic makes. And that number goes even lower for women. I hope that's not your case, but it's about 52 cents to every dollar. Now we could try to go into higher earning jobs that pay more money, like in the tech field. But I saw this Pew Research study in 2022 that found that Hispanic workers make up about 17% of the labor force, but we make up about only 8% of STEM roles, jobs that are out there.
Welcome to Latinx in Power. Today we are talking with Walyce Phillip. Walyce is the leader in digital media products and operations with extensive program management experience. She excels in driving product strategy by setting priorities and guiding products through the execution cycle with a focus on enhancing customer experience and engagement. This is like a long time in the cooking. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited with our conversation.
Thank you, Thais. I'm super happy and honored to be here. I always listen to your podcast and I read your newsletter, which is amazing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been incredible to be talking with you. You're a great helper for this podcast. For folks who doesn't know, she recommended me a lot of guests that we have and I have in my backlog. So it's been incredible collaborating with you and your help. And in this episode, we will uncover key milestones in Walyce's career and how technical documentation has shaped her journey. We'll explore her experience crafting a course with Udacity and delve into the significance of mentorship in her career, as well as how she balances professional responsibilities with her commitment to mentoring and community involvement. First things first, what does it mean to be a Latina for you?
Big question. Thank you. Well, I'm a first generation Brazilian American. I grew up in a household, typical Brazilian family with Sunday churrascos, watching novelas, cantando Roberto Carlos. So that's typical, but something unique about my family was that I grew up in a church community in Miami, Florida, and we had Spanish language services and congregants from all over Latin America and the Caribbean. So, oh, by the way, my parents, my siblings and me were all fluent in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. We're a trilingual family because of that. So I've always felt connected to the Latinx community from being steeped in all these different cultures, but seeing myself as a Latina, that identity became much stronger when I actually moved to New York City after college from Miami. So for the first time ever in New York, I had the experience of feeling othered and being that token Latina in the workforce, which wasn't great. But instead of hiding my multicultural background, I just owned it. I make it a point to contribute to the greater Brazilian and Latino communities. And I see that as a strength.
I love that. That's incredible. I love your family already, and I love that you're able to speak 3 languages. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you. It's they're characters, my family.
Incredible. And what drives you personally and professionally?
Yeah. I had this experience I remember when I was at Miami-Dade Community College as a young teenager. I went to a counselor to ask about how can I transfer to an Ivy League university. So you go to community college, you get your AA, your first 60 credits, and then you transfer to get your undergraduate degree. She quickly glanced at my thin transcript and she looked at me and said, you would never be accepted by those schools. Don't even try to apply. And I kind of believed her. I had no idea at that time what I brought to the table, but I brought a lot to the table. I had a radio show when I was a teenager. I learned how to manage the soundboard and the mixer before podcasts were a thing. I was the editor of my college paper. I volunteered in my community, sang in choir, tutored immigrant kids, all of this before the age of 18. And I just didn't know how to tell that story. But I did manage to transfer to a good school. I went to the University of Miami, go the U, to study journalism. And through that career, I got better at asking questions and I felt allowed to practice my curiosity. A big question for me was, why is it that my parents and a lot of Latinos in the community work so hard but struggle to achieve economic stability or upward mobility? Recently, because I had to look into this, recently I learned that the Latinx community, we do struggle. We struggle with economic inequality and lack of representation of careers that are in demand. On average, Latin Americans in the US make about 73 cents to every dollar that a white non-Hispanic makes, and that number goes even lower for women. I hope that's not your case, but it's about 52 cents to every dollar. Now we could try to go into higher earning jobs that pay more money, like in the tech field. But I saw this Pew Research study in 2022 that found that Hispanic workers make up about 17% of the labor force, but we make up about only 8% of STEM roles, jobs that are out there. So I have always been curious about tech, and eventually I made my transition into this career, into this field. But it took reporting on people in the field to see that possibility for me. And what drives me now is I refuse to let personal or systemic obstacles stop me from learning, from growing, from pursuing my dreams. And I try to help other young women overcome those obstacles too, and help them tell their story.
I love that. And I like that you touched a very important point. And I think there's a misconception, especially in this country. I feel that people usually, when they think about hard work, they think about like the person being able to succeed and success, but not necessarily, right? And as you said, like, if you don't have access to high-paying jobs, if you continue like working and working and working, you're not going to get the same success as someone who have access to high-paying jobs will have. So this is a really important point, and especially thinking about the goal of this podcast and the folks that I'm talking, like when we think about the numbers and access of like folks from Latin America and the Caribbean to tech, it's just so low. I don't know if we have updated numbers, but last time I saw it was less than 3% of Latin America folks who are able to get into tech. I have a sense that this number is lower due to all layoffs and everything that is happening with tech. So it's very, very sad. And when we think about leadership positions, I believe this number is not even 1%, right? I think this is something that we
in
sense.
the C-suite.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God, not at all.
That's right. And access to the resources, not just to the higher salaries, but the skills that are in demand so that we can negotiate salaries and ask for more money, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And another topic that I wanted to talk with you, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. Maybe as an introvert and as a person who really likes to write things down, I wanted to ask you, could you share with us how technical documentation has influenced your learning and professional journey, particularly in your role at AWS Docs?
Yes, so technical writers do tend to be introverted as well. Currently, I work on the AWS team that produces technical documentation for 200 plus services across AWS. And this information is available online for free on our website, AWS Docs, and it's produced by hundreds of technical writers that are amazing people that I work with. We also have decision guides for more business making decisions that are out there trying to find the right solutions for challenge or use case. We have a Getting Started Resource Center, a code examples library, which developers really get into, and so many more resources. But it wasn't until I joined AWS and on this team that I really got to see how much love and effort, technical effort, writing effort goes into what our technical writers put into giving customers accurate, useful, authoritative information. So now prior to that, how documentation affected me personally. When I was studying journalism at the University of Miami, two of my favorite professors said something that has stayed with me forever. Our web development professor, he's Brazilian, by the way, he said that the most valuable thing he could teach us was how to learn, and started getting into finding documentation like this is how you learn things, this is how you search for it. Then our media law professor said, most of you in this classroom will find yourselves in jobs that don't currently exist. And that blew my mind. So while working as a journalist, I was always trying to learn new technology, getting my hands in there, reading documentation, watching videos, trying out code. And it gave me some cool opportunities to implement and develop some CRMs, content management tools, some SMS tools, some front-end sites, microsites that I got to build. But I didn't really see myself as a tech person until the media industry laid me off. And I know a lot of people are going through that right now, so I feel for you. And I had to ask myself, what else got me excited? And that's when the light bulb went off. I wanted to help build the technology that powers content creation, publishing, distribution, help communication, collaboration. But even with all this information at my fingertips to learn what I wanted to learn, I still felt that I had two gaps in my skills and knowledge. The first one was making business savvy, strategic decisions about what technology you're going to use and why. And the second one was, well, how do you execute that strategy? So I went back to school. I graduated from Columbia University with an executive master's in technology management, and I got certified in project management with the PMI. So soon after that, I started working at Amazon. But yeah, the documentation kind of followed me through that journey from beginning to end.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I quite often reflect on that, about like the things we truly love doing, and also all those people in our lives that like inspire us, help us, and not so much. I think there's always like a balance of the ones who like support and the ones that who doubt us. And like I feel like the secret is like what you do with this information, even though sometimes they are not as great. And at my current company, we use a lot of like sports terms, which is like, I don't follow any sports, but I feel that it's very interesting, especially because the former CEO was like a former rugby player.
Oh,
And they get inspired a lot by a rugby team called All Blacks, and they have like a term that they say, go for the gap. And I think this is like a beautiful translation of like your career as well, and a lot of things we do in life, although sometimes something happens that is not that great, but then you have this idea of like combining some thoughts and some skills, and then you go for the gap. And it's just like amazing. I think I didn't have language to translate that, and I feel that I did this a lot in my career, and it's just like I love to think about that, and I feel very inspired to hear from you as well.
We can draw inspiration from different disciplines. Rugby also inspired some of the concepts in Scrum methodology. So
yeah.
That's, or when I'm feeling unmotivated or a little down, I think of the football, the soccer analogy my mom always uses, she's in Portuguese, it's bola para frente, que atrás vem gente. Or ball forward, because there's people after you. You got to keep things moving forward. Don't look back. So that's my mom. She used to play football. So uh,
Uh-huh.
I understand being around people that use sports analogies.
Yeah, and I love that, especially because it's something so new to me. I still like don't follow any sports, but I really like those analogies and this mindset, and I think it's very inspiring. And for the podcast, I interview some like former athletes, and it's just like so inspiring, especially to see like how the skills you develop can be translated to corporate as well, and it's just like incredible. I love them, although I just don't fully understand some parts.
It's okay. Just ask when you don't know.
Yeah, right. I'm still like not watching any game, but it's okay.
They understand.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about your experience creating a course. And can you tell me more like about your process and like the key takeaways that you learned and like the connections you made? How was this process for you?
Oh, I loved it. So, for those of you listening, available now on Udacity, it's an ed tech platform, is my digital project management nano degree. Udacity actually trademarked that term, nano degree. And it's basically a set of 2 courses and a final project, all about digital project management. So, building that nano degree was really amazing. I worked with a curriculum designer, so someone with an education background, a program manager, video producer, graphic designer, researchers. Working with the researchers, we identified our target audience and kind of narrowed down what were the most in demand skills and careers, the demographics, and sort of realized that with my experience and the course material, I could focus on people in the digital marketing, digital media, software development spaces. So that's kind of who I'm mostly talking to throughout the course. I co-designed the curriculum, created the course content, recorded videos, selected assistants to help me grade. And of course, I marketed the program. So that's the whole go-to-market journey right there. And definitely a big takeaway from building the digital project management course on Udacity was that the value of project management as a vehicle for execution in any industry. I've used it in every field that I've worked in. And we even use the principles of project management to execute that nano degree in a timely manner. So I strongly believe that digital project management is a great entryway for people looking to transition into a technical field. Because not only can you use that skill set to negotiate, like we were talking earlier, for a better salary, but you can use project management to enhance your knowledge of any field. So, for example, project managers have to coordinate subject matter experts on a particular project. By the end of that project, when you complete it, you now know more about that technology than you ever did before. So it's a good learning mechanism as well.
Incredible. I love that. And something that I usually tell to people is that I feel like there is a component of project management in every role, like basically everything you do. Sometimes you're planning a trip with friends and family. You need to organize, like book a hotel and just coordinate the timing. And it's just like there's like always a project management aspect in everything you do. And I know that for some people, it might come more naturally than the others, but I think it is just such an important skill that everyone should develop. So we are going to link to the description of this episode, your course. I'm very excited about this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I really believe it's going to help some people out there. So
Incredible. I love that. And I wanted to talk with you about mentorship. I know this is an important aspect for you and for your career. And how have mentors played a role in guiding your path? And how do you approach mentorship yourself?
Yeah. So in my life, I just thinking back, I didn't know many people, let alone women, with a career in STEM. There were even some members in my community, kind of conservative community, who believed in traditional gender roles. And in my opinion, the consequences of some of that sometimes is not enough investment in educating girls in quote unquote boy majors. So, for example, my friend's brother took apart a computer, and everyone would say he would become an engineer, and he was, really into that and into sci-fi shows and things like that. I kind of was too. I messed around with my dad's computer and the engineering board at the radio, but no one ever said to me that I could be a computer scientist. But there were a couple moms in my church community who played a pivotal role. And they weren't formal mentors, but they showed me what mentoring could look like. One mom, she told me when I was about 15 years old that my writing was on college level. And that's when I enrolled at a community college through this program that helped cover tuition costs. And my best friend's mom tutored me in math so that I could pass the college entrance exam. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know how much algebra I would know right now. So these moms put me on the right path, but I could have used some role models to further explore what I was capable of. Someone to say, hey, you could be a computer scientist. So currently I am a vice chair on a board of a wonderful nonprofit called Pineapple Women. It was founded a few years ago by a colleague of mine, Andrea Chavez. She's Colombiana, a public school teacher, and we offer Latinas ages 14 to 24 professional development and mentorship. A big reason why it's important to reach these amigas of ours at that age is because we want to equip them with understanding and ability to articulate the skills that they have and its value in the market. We do that because we're working on their self-confidence so they can advocate for themselves, tell their story, pursue their dreams. So if there's anyone out there listening, you would like to support Pineapple Women, visit our website, pineapplewomen.com. But mentorship helped me to be able to build my self-confidence, to understand what kind of value, what do I bring to the table in the workforce, and I'm just passing that on to whatever students I work with.
Incredible. I love your journey, and I love how when you bring the sense that mentorship can come with like different, in many, many different places. And I feel like now we talk a lot about mentorship, and perhaps people will think about like, oh, it's someone that I work, or someone that works in a company that I want to work, and we need to plan this coffee, and it's like more like formal, but you can get a mentor like anywhere in like a lot of different spaces, and doesn't need to be this formal way that you imagine, like messaging someone on LinkedIn and then scheduling a coffee. It can be like in a lot of different places, a lot of different setups. So I love that you mentioned that. I think it's an important thing to keep in mind.
Thank you. It's so true, but it does take being connected to your community, being connected to people, and not being afraid to say, hey, look at this paper I wrote, or I'm thinking about going to this college. What do you think? And then, as I mentioned before, sometimes people will tell you, don't do it. That's a bad idea. Don't consider, or you can't do it. You can't make it. So it also takes a little bit of resilience on people's end, but the people who love us and support us, they help fuel that resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you balance everything? How do you balance your professional responsibilities with your commitment? Let me say that again. How do you balance your professional responsibility with your commitment? Oh my God, it's been hard to say this word. How do you balance your professional responsibilities with your commitment to mentorship and community involvement?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you've recognized accurately that it can be tricky sometimes. But my community work, it feeds my professional development and vice versa. When I applied to be a mentor at the Intrepid Museum, I did that for a couple of years. The program director in her interview asks, "Why are you applying?" I was so honest. I said, "I have a selfish reason." And that made her laugh because I was being brutally honest. And I said, I wanted to practice leadership. And I believe that leading a group of students in a STEM project would be a good way of practicing that, of building my career. So as I learn something new, I pass it off to our students. When I learn something from those community experiences, I apply it at work, like how to collaborate with diverse people and have empathy. And teenage girls can really teach you to have empathy. So, of course, mentoring and volunteering does require some sacrifice and excellent time management. So, there are some things that I learned to do, like delegating tasks, very important, having clear goals and deadlines, time boxing your work. And currently, Thais, I've been loving using these AI tools like ChatGPT and Grammarly to help me produce materials and communicate clearly. Just put things together for me at a much faster rate so that I can do my Pineapple Women work, my mentoring work of, a few hours on the weekend and don't have to sacrifice too much time for it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that's an incredible reminder to use all those tools in our favor so they can help us. And I love when you said that all those like community involvement help you in your professional development. That's awesome. That's incredible. And I would love to expand on that because it might be something that for other folks, it might not come naturally. And of course, when you have all those commitments and it's just like incredible, you're helping people, you're making a difference. But as also at the sacrifice of your free time and like a lot of other things. But it's also interesting this angle where you're also developing new skills that sometimes at work you might not be able to do it, or at work I feel that sometimes there's like a lot more pressure, right? Because you want to make something work and they are like checking on you, and when you're like doing something on the side, you kind of like can experiment a little bit more. At least this is the way I feel, so I would love to get more into this aspect with you.
Yeah, mentoring and working in official programs inside, our org, Pineapple Women, or the Intrepid Museum was a wonderful resource. Some other nonprofits that I volunteered at. There is room to experiment, and it's actually part of the mentorship. It is good for the younger people to see you say, I want to learn this thing. I don't know what it is or how to do it. Let's learn it together. Let's figure it out. And then seeing my process about how do I do that, and then showing them. So I'll give you an example. I had been doing a lot of data analytics with web traffic at one job of mine, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about how to analyze that, the metrics, and understand what it means. So I did a presentation to the students, this group of students that I was working with. They were high school in New York City girls, and they asked so many challenging questions about, wait a minute, you can get that kind of information on people, asking questions about privacy and security, things that I had to implement in my work, and like compliance to GDPR. And then a few years later, girls were already graduating high school. I was no longer with that particular group. I was someplace else. But one of these girls that watched that presentation messaged me on LinkedIn and said, I got into, I think it was Brown University, and I decided that I'm going to study data science because of your presentation.
Oh.
So like it helped me refine my skills a bit at work, but it also resulted in this amazing career for a bright young woman who I think is going to be a leader for us in the future. So
incredible. That's the best win-win situation, in my opinion. And when you, like, as we are talking in the beginning, like having access to tech and those like higher paying jobs. It's just like a game changer, not for the individual, for like families and communities. So I love the story.
Me too. It makes me, again, like I said, it's selfish. It makes me feel good. But hopefully it's a win-win situation for the students too, not just me.
It is. And which resource helped you in your journey that you want to share with us today?
Well, I'm going to reiterate, get into documentation. So even if you're not a computer scientist or an engineer, but you want to learn an AI tool or a software, there is almost always official documentation by the company or the people who produce that thing. So get into that first because it's almost always free. Um, an empowering story that I read, this amazing book by Dr. Rana El-Kaloubi. She's an AI scientist, founder of Affectiva. She wrote a book called Girl Decoded, and I'm going to read you the full title because it's long. So it's Girl Decoded, a scientist's quest to reclaim our humanity by bringing emotional intelligence to technology. So what I loved about reading this book is that she does have a religious upbringing, which there were some aspects of that I kind of related to. She had been through war, she had been through marital issues, so many things that I think most girls would be inspired by hearing. How is it that Dr. Kaloubi was able to overcome that? So, and all while building an amazing AI company called Effectiva. So I love that book, recommend it. I also always try to encourage people to get with community. I learn with other women through one-on-one mentoring or attending conferences like Tech Up for Women. And for those times that I didn't have money to go, I would volunteer at the conferences to be able to get in for free. And connecting with affinity groups. So I connect with Brazilian women inside of Amazon, also outside of Project Management Club, women in product events, and it's I guess the modern way of making new friends. And then finally, I just want to. I would be really impressed by anyone who got to this point in the podcast. They've listened to the whole thing. So if you are that person, DM me on LinkedIn. I got to know who you are. Follow me, follow Pineapple Women on LinkedIn.
Amazing. I love this conversation. I think you mentioned a lot of very important things. I'm very happy about it. And I want to leave the last minutes for you to share anything else you want to share with us. And again, we are going to link to the description of this episode, like everything you're mentioning, including your LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. I want to mention that talking about the hurdles and the obstacles when I first speak to students about it, I was a little nervous to do that, especially mentioning my conservative religious background. I don't want anyone to be offended because it was just my experience. It's not everyone's experience. But I learned to be confident in telling that story over time because it does no favors to other people of any age to sugarcoat things. We have to talk about some of the challenges and struggles that we go through. And then what did you do to overcome those struggles? So people can see that, oh, that's what you did. Well, I have that capacity. I have that capability. I can do that too. So if money is the issue, I overcame that with higher education. If confidence is the issue, I overcame that. If whatever it is, there's so many aspects in our story that we may not realize could be relatable to students. So it's a matter of getting it out there, telling people what you went through, and let them tell you whether or not they relate. And you'll be surprised. The students are not shy to come up to you and say something or ask a question about, wait, huh? How did you do that? So that's what I encourage everyone to try it out. Don't be shy, even you introverts.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Thaisa.